and Hashi bring him visual effects from movies and shows.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to VFX and Chill. I am Hashi, and right over there is my lovely co-host, Seth. And right behind him is our amazing keeper of the knowledge and expert on everything just enough, Michael Zalapsky. Hey, everybody. This is VFX and Chill. This is a show where we like to talk about visual effects. Sometimes we create our own on the show, and sometimes we talk about something that's cool out there in the world of visual effects and technology. And today is one of those days. If you saw our looping trailer, you know that we are here, or read the description, or any of our promotional material, I guess. We're here to talk about trying to use Generative Fill, which is a new feature of Adobe Photoshop. It's available in the beta edition, and we want to use it for visual effects. Let me kick it off. Seth, how you doing, man? Oh, you're over here.
I am. Hosh, how are you, pal? I'm doing so freaking good. Just posting about our show on the socials.
On 400 social media websites?
Yes, I now have. Since last week, we have 5 more. It feels like.
Perfect. You're on the Blue Ski and the Threads and.
I'm not on the Blue Ski. I'm not on the Blue Ski, but I'm on the Threads, and I'm on the Mastodon, and I'm on I'm still on the Twites because that was almost something bad. And Michael, how are you holding up since this is your literal job?
Yeah, it's fun. I spun up the Red Giant thread the other day, and thinking about how do I tweet it the same as Twitter, or do I make it more like Instagram, or I don't know. Everyone's trying to figure all this stuff out, and it's just all kinds of fun. But I am just excited about visual effects. That's what I'm excited about, and that's why we're here.
Me too, man. Me too. Okay, I think I've done posting.
Excellent. I am asking the chat just while we talk for a second, because there's a little bit of a delay here, but please suggest like a famous piece of art or something like that, something that I could easily find a picture of. And because we like to take suggestions on the show too.
Especially.
Let's do that. So Girl with the Pearl Earrings there. I feel like I've seen too many demos of Girl with the Pearl Earring. Let's find something. Let's go broader. I appreciate it though, Frigby. But anyway, go ahead and suggest those for a second. I'll start talking and blabbing about what we are here to.
Well, Hosh, let me ask you, Hosh, what is Generative Fill?
Yeah, we do need to discuss what it is at its basic level.
I'm so happy that you asked. How
do you get access? Sorry, I went too fast.
I love it. Okay, you know what? I think I see a suggestion for the persistence of time. The lovely
time is a good Dali piece.
That'll be a perfect example.
Vranos just yelled Muppets.
Muppets. Oh man, that's a good answer too. Okay,
Frigby has now suggested the Garden of Earthly Delight from Hieronymus Bosch. Which
there are a lot. Whatever. There are a lot of.
That
Bosch
looks like generative art.
Is that what the TV show Bosch is based on?
Yes, but it fictionalizes his
prompts. Can you do Billionaire Funny in UFC Arena, guys?
Well, we can,
but it's going to be more complex than that today. Look, now that we're typing this stuff in, Generative Fill, what is it? How is it different from content-aware fill?
All right, those are some very good questions. And in fact, I'm going to start sharing my screen we could talk about this even.
Can I go to you now? Is it safe?
So should be safe. Safe search is on. Hopefully Adobe will let me know if so. Look at that. You said it in the comments, and here it is right on the screen. Who suggested that? Was it Brian Smith?
That was Frig.
Thank you, Brian.
Wait, no. Persistence of Time? That was, Brian Smith.
That's Brian Smith.
Excellent. So what generative fill is it's related to content-aware fill to some degree, but entirely different. So, yeah, basically generative fill is Adobe's own diffusion model for generating content into an image. Diffusion basically just means it looks at a bunch of like little samplings of pixels, puts them all in a blender to let us know like what is this image made out of, and then tries to reconstruct structures similar out of the noise pattern to what it saw before. But you know what's more fun than that is just let's do an example, because an example is worth 1,000 words. I don't know.
I mean, what's interesting,
All right.
like a lot of people are familiar with Midjourney or Stable Diffusion or DALL-E if they're old. And one of the things that makes Photoshop's
They're old.
implementation
Jesus.
very, thank you. Something that makes Photoshop's implementation very different is that instead of generating it from whole cloth, so to speak, like just out of thin air, Adobe's inside Photoshop, tries to make an image like to add on to your image, and it'll match the lighting, it'll match the focus, or at least try. Like, so you have like something in like, you know, the foreground that's sharp, and you got the shallow depth of field, so everything in the background is blurry, and you say, I want to put like a picture on the wall back behind there that's blurry. It does a pretty dang good job of matching. You just say, you know, picture on wall, and you get a blurry picture in the background. And I had a backlit forest shot, drew a line, you know, rough line mask shape, and said, "Give me a line," and the line like had a mane that was backlit. The light was weird, but the lighting was right.
I mean, it's a really cool idea. So basically, yeah, in its simplest form, generative fill is a way that you lasso around an area in an image you have, and then you can click generative fill, and now you can give it a prompt. And if you're not familiar with a prompt, it's just a little teeny text description of what you want to appear in this section. So basically, it's the most accessible form of generating art. It's easier than going onto Discord and doing a Midjourney render. It's easier than going and downloading all of Stable Diffusion and figuring out how to get it to work. Because it's a tool, it's Photoshop. You know how to use the lasso tool. And now there's this little thing right here, and I could say... an island, and I'll just say generate, and it will think for a second, and hopefully, let's see, here we go.
One of the things that I was impressed by is you can put like a lake or a puddle or a stream like in the front of your image, and it'll do a decent job reflecting.
Okay, so the persistence of sailboats.
Oh, there you go.
I don't know how it came up with sailboat. I wish I had typed sailboat and this was the result, because that would have been a really good example of this. Did I spell island poorly? Is there a brand of rowboat called Island?
I think it may be because it's mistaking that ground for water. And you had the ground. You had the ground and the water selected. So
Which brings us to
confused.
One of the first points of how generative fill works. You have your image here, and then wherever you draw with your little lasso, that is where it's going to try to generate something. So let's try back here. Let's just say island, and put it all just in the water here. And let's see what it comes up with.
While we're waiting for that to run, in the chat, Niraj Verma is asking, hey, how do you match color adding elements in live action footage? We've got a tutorial coming out on Monday where Hashi shows you the fastest and easiest way to get color matched elements into your footage. But the short version is super comp. And hey, look at this. You got an island with a boat.
Yeah, there's an island back there.
Look at that.
And it even added like a little water tower. I would have never thought of that. We've got this, and let's see, I'm going to replace this. This watch doesn't make any sense. The weirdest thing about this is like none of this makes sense.
If you don't do a prompt, it will just try to guess what should be there in place of what is there.
That's a good point. An empty prompt means do what you think would be there.
Mm-hmm. This is a very similar tool to the new remove tool in Photoshop, which is basically the same.
Look at that
kind of technology. Yeah.
So Generative Fill happens to be like the best paint out artists around. So
I'm
look at
actually
this. So
getting
basically
word, by the way. I just got word that Generative Fill is actually here.
Generative
Here he
Fill.
is, Generative Fill, our good friend.
Hey,
Our new good friend. Phil, you look very
buddy.
familiar.
It's a goatee. I'd recognize that goatee anywhere.
Yeah. Is he thinking?
Did Content Aware Phil fall into like a nuclear reactor or nuclear like a particle accelerator?
Yeah.
Or collider?
I think that Content Aware Phil,
The nerdiest watchman.
he just used to be a simple technician that would look at motion vectors, calculate paths, and then kind of project pixels along those mathematical paths, so like a scientist. But then they started dabbling in machine learning, which is like beyond the capabilities of a single human to understand.
Oh, he's bored. He got tired.
That's all right. That's fair. But yeah, this is what Generative Fill does. You've probably seen lovely examples of doing this kind of stuff online. I'll circle this unfortunate situation here. It's an unfortunate anthropomorphized hip bone with eyelashes and a clock melting on it. And look, now it's gone.
Bye.
Which is kind of ridiculous. And I'm just reminded of the fragile nature of time as we simply press Generative Fill without any prompt, and it just erases it. It tries to imagine the most plain version of what's going on there. So this is all well and good, but it is clearly just doing this on one frame at a time. And what good is one frame at a time if you're trying to do motion graphics or visual effects? It's kind of not, right? So one of the things I guess I didn't mention when I was doing this is whenever you run Generative Fill, over here in the corner, there will be a few variations of what it generated. So you get 3 test paint-outs that it did.
And those stay live with the layers. So if Hashi clicks back into any of the other layers, and Seth, can you move our pictures to the side so we can more see what's going on, please? Thank you. You can see that each one of those layers still has the memory of those 3 options, and you can rerun a prompt from that panel as well, and it will then add options to the layer. It's very nice for iterating and trying new different things out.
It's really cool.
It is. But yeah, like again, this is for one frame, and that's not as helpful if we're trying to do kind of video stuff. But Seth and I do have some examples, as you saw in the promo, that we can probably get into and talk about today.
Yeah.
You want to pull those up? Ooh, lovely. Look at that. All right. So over here, I'll just play it on a loop. Some of the things that you can do when you can only affect one frame at a time, you can use that flickeriness to your advantage. So in these cases, simulating things like a drawing that would be drawn anew every frame, or a time lapse where you're supposed to see some pretty different information each time around. These are some really cool ways to use Generative Fill to make things that would be very complicated if you had to do every single one manually. But now that we have them in Photoshop, which works great with After Effects, we can simply do the same pattern over and over again, which for me is taking some video, basically, and exporting it as a bunch of frames that are prepped in a way to give you to erase specific regions of the frame. I feel like I'm completely I've lost all my articulation.
No, that's really good, because I think this is, you've been able, so this stuff you're looking at here is an example of like what I'm excited for you to show us today, because this is stuff you've been doing I've not touched at all, which is this idea of multi-frame generation, manipulating the image like by manipulating every single frame and using the flickery look to your advantage. My favorite of these, besides these amazing sketch things that you showed, I think last week on the show, my favorite are these like fake time lapse construction, as if this is how buildings are built. Like I love the idea that they're like fully built and furnished floor by floor.
When I posted this, I did get architect here. I was like, I
Built the frame
know.
first, you jerk. Like, obviously.
Fine. I know that you don't actively paint
such a
a
smart
building
idea.
and put in its windows as your build. I know.
Like, how far do you think we can go, guys? How far do you think we can take this?
Richard Scarry's Busy Town, and
I love it. I think it's awesome.
was able to glean.
So like,
amount.
there's that side of this.
That drone scanning shot.
Yeah, that was a cool
I'm
idea.
really interested in.
That was a cool idea.
So I got a lot of weird tricks going on. So should we dive into it?
Well, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Real quick though, just to finish my thought, on the other, on the other side of this is using generative fill, not doing a multi-frame workflow, but doing either using something like Kingpin Tracker or Lockdown to either paint out, like to do paint out work, or to do like planar tracking and add elements into the shot, track elements into the shot that weren't there, and you just have to generate one frame of them. There's also some really other stupid fun applications that we can do that we'll get into. But just
that is
to
a
start
fantastic
off,
point. Yeah.
let's see, where should we start? I know you made a plan. Let's see.
I mean, I figure those are the two ways that we've figured out how to use generative fill for video. Like Seth said, creating something, like transforming one of your frames, then tracking that information into After Effects, because it's actually a really, like, that's what we do half the time if we're doing compositing of like ivy growing on a building or something like that. But now you can generative create a lot of iterations of something way easier than you could just Photoshop it before. And that's fantastic. And the other way is this like every single frame kind of deal. And it turns out that is not as difficult as you may think. So I could get into one of the examples right here pretty easily.
Do it. Get into it.
All right. So I still have this bit.ly up.
We'll talk about this towards the
We'll
end
talk
of the
about
show.
this later. So everyone remind me at some point in the show when I'm blabbing too much about this other stuff, say, hey, get back to the Mission Impossible thing. What's the deal with that?
Yes,
Anyway,
chat,
let me
remind us, please.
Perfect. Let's open up. I think it's this shot. Might be a fun example. City drone. It's Ethan Loop again. Oh, this is the one. Never mind. I want to do the tall building one because that was so silly and fun. Pardon me. I should have had this all open.
You're pardoned.
Yes. All right. I do have. For the longest time, I've had this folder in our VFX and Chill called Hashi's Weird AI Stuff folder. And it's always just full of the most ridiculous little experiments and things. So it's probably here under Generative City. I hope. We'll see. What?
What happened?
Oh, it gave me a warning that my depth scanner wasn't available all of a sudden.
Uh-oh.
Whatever. Oh, I just really want the right project. I'm so sorry, everybody. Where did we save this one? Ba 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 da 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 da.
You're a Barbie girl?
I'm so excited for that movie.
I'm very excited for that too. City time lapse? Goodness gracious. This is what happens when you're not sure if something is going to turn into a show, and then eventually it does, and you're like, oh, all that stuff I did.
I would jump in,
here
but
we go.
I'm trying to create something last second that I just thought of.
Oh, do it. Do it. Okay, this was my favorite result in the end. So let me see if, is this the playback of it? No. Oh, result. Okay, here's a little playback. This was my favorite result. I loved how much it just felt like I went with the camera movement. It has a lot of cool things going for it. So the first thing I did is I started with this piece of footage, which was very simple. It was just this one right here. Single building. Oh, show it. Single building footage. So here is my piece of stock footage. Very standard stock footage kind of situation. And so let's put that into a new composition. Now, one of the things that I knew I needed to do was basically erase this building from this shot. And, erasing stuff is sort of one of the things we're talking about today. And I figured that this would be a very complicated shot to do. Or it could also be, you could do the Hashi method, which is duplicate the layer. Slide that right over there. And, I don't know. Just do a little feathered mask. And then, hey, look at that. Look. Perfectly erased building.
Hashi.
Good Lord.
So sometimes it's about working lazier and not harder.
I mean, the city part, fine, but the sky.
Well, what ended up happening was I decided just to replace the whole sky in general. And so what we ended up with is, let's see, where's the erased single building?
I feel like this episode, more than some of our others, demonstrates the importance of organizing one's comp structure. And
it really does. So here was my actual background. So you can see that it's basically just copying this bit over here, and I've tracked in a new sky. And interestingly, the way I made this new sky plate, which is in here, was by using, I grabbed it basically from the original footage. So if we go to the final frame of this, you can see that there's that sky, and it's kind of there. But there's this lovely button that's in Content-Aware Fill, who works really nicely with Generative Fill. And I have my computer set up so Photoshop Beta is the default. And I suggest you do too, because if you do this, you can go right to any frame like this, say create reference frame. And when you do that, it pops it right into Photoshop like this. I'm just going to clear the guides because I don't like looking at them. And then I could do something like, I could probably even press the select subject button. And it'll select that building. And then let's modify and expand this by about 5 pixels. And then let's also select the ground over here. Why not? And then just say generate fill with no prompt. And as you'll recall, if there's no prompt, it's just going to try to kind of eliminate the pixels that were inside the box and kind of mimic whatever's going on outside. It's different a little bit than the way Content-Aware Fill does it. Like, look at this. It created 3 new little examples.
I think you needed to flip your mask, maybe. Because I think it's giving you a new city.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Sky.
Whoops. Goodness. I am all over the place today. I'm loving it. Okay, let's invert that.
I liked those new cities.
Oh, gosh.
But what Content-Aware Fill does is it tries to basically clone from other parts of the image. And remember, in newer versions of Photoshop, you can tell it what parts of the image you want it to be cloning from. Whereas Generative Fill tries to look at the image. Generative Fill tries to look. Generative Fill tries to look at what the image is, understand what it is, and then build that thing. Instead of looking at the image and trying to use pieces from the image to paste in, it tries to generate its own things based on what it thinks the scene is. It's very interesting because it's using a bunch of different computer models. Because first the computer model has to say, "What is that?" Then the next computer model has to say, how do I build that?" And whoa, that's cool.
So I did want to have the building selected because that's what I'm trying to get rid of here. So unfortunately, I left like a little pixel of it at the top, so it's trying to resolve that. But this is really cool because it creates a perfect, identical building, background all the way up to where the building is, and paints in the rest of the sky really plausibly. Like, look at this extra cloud that it added.
Yeah, that extra cloud looks
just
perfect.
Based on the hint of a cloud here. So you would not get that with Content-Aware Fill. And in fact, I could add this mask to the selection right here, and we could do Content-Aware Fill. We could say edit, what is it under now? It's under fill, content-aware fill. I need to be on a layer, that's why. Edit, fill, content-aware fill. So here's what it does. So basically it shows you what area of the screen it identified as being similar to itself and then resampled it everywhere. And it's not horrible. I can say apply, but I only get basically one version of it. And you can see it's weird. There's some stuff going on. Like Phil tried, and this is probably better than the result I would have gotten in After Effects using content-aware fill for video, but it's still it's nowhere as good as this full sky. And you know what? If I wanted to, I could either use the healing brush or content-aware fill and just select this little bit and just say erase you too. And what's really cool is it's going to like compound on top of this stuff. Hopefully it just erases it instead of like drawing a bird. Yeah, there we go. Perfectly erased, maintained the gradient, the edges of those clouds and everything. So you can generate additional fills to erase anything, which is really cool. So now I have this whole sky basically all the way down to the horizon, which is wonderful. And when I did that silly trick of copying over the building and stuff, I ended up with this nice thing and pasted that sky right there. I just tracked it to some spot there. And you can see it's not even the greatest. You can see my thing right there. But now comes the crazy trick of trying to figure out how to use Generate Fill to create that building under construction. So I did separately track this shot, and I used the track both for the horizon to replace the sky there and also to isolate the building from this. So I do have a comp that is just the building also. And it's not the most perfect cutout. It's just a big solid that you can see is sort of tracked to it. It has a little mask on it that is sort of morphing along with the building shape, but not even perfectly, because it doesn't really matter. It's just enough that I have the building all by itself like that. So if I layer up the erased building and the cutout building, I end up with a new composition like this. And it should look basically like the original stock footage, right? But
it looks like exactly the same.
So yeah, but this building can be turned off, which is cool. So now what I need is something that is the stupidest thing ever is I know I want this building to appear over time. So the first thing I thought of was just doing an animated mask or something like that, which would probably work fine. I could go to the beginning frame, do a mask over all of it, and add a keyframe here. I'll turn the mask to subtract. And now I will go to the end here where I want the whole building revealed and just slide my mask up like that.
So stupid.
So right now look, now you have, I mean, honestly, a not horrible effect.
It's already pretty dang
I mean,
good.
it's like if you just did like rough and edges and a few things like that could just go on a TV show. Like you could use that.
You could totally use this on a TV show. And speaking of like using effects that you could use on TV shows, that got me to thinking, why use a mask when one of my favorite effects is just sitting right there called card wipe. So card wipe, as you all know, is this effect. Ready? Boop, 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 boop. Boop, 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 boop. And card wipe is just a transition. You can transition from your frame to another layer. And for the back layer, if you say none, then as the transition happens, it transitions off into nothing. So I liked the general feel of this, but I needed to make a few modifications. So I went over to it and I said I want it to go from the bottom to the top, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I think not.
Oh, I guess it's the top to the bottom because here we go. So now if I go to the beginning, let's find what transition amount makes it start to come in at the bottom. So right around here, let's put a keyframe there because I want it to start right away. And then maybe about a second before the end, I want the whole thing to be revealed. So we're going to turn the transition backward in time until the whole building is complete right here. So now we've got this animation. Boop, 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 boop. I mean, not the most phenomenal thing in the world, but you can mess even more.
Do you turn up the timing randomness?
The thing is, you could still do that for money.
Heck yeah. And in fact, what I really did, just to be honest, but not to deal with it, is I did that transition on my solid here. Because this is a 3D tracked solid that's in the comp. It works with a camera. And if I add card dance to it, watch this. Let's do the same thing that we were doing before. We'll say on the back is, oh, not card dance. Sorry,
I was going to
card
ask,
wipe.
yeah.
Thank you. Card wipe. Back to this thing. Now we want it to go, what, from the bottom to top? Is that what we said? Or,
top to
no,
bottom.
It's top to bottom. Dang it. All right. So now what's cool about this is if it's not moving, the camera still does. See? So that's better than
nice.
this one. Like, so this one, if you had small enough bits, that would fool you fine. But if you want the real like camera move, put card wipe on the solid that is masking in your building. And not only card wipe, put on card wipe, turn up the number of cards. You can turn up the rows until they maybe match sort of the shape of a window. Turn up the number of columns until you can see. Right now I can't see anymore because they're all flipping in the same direction. So let's change the flip direction to random. And now you get this kind of distribution, which is cool. And on top of that, you can even do things like have adjust the transition width. So the higher this width is, the more of the building is affected. If I turn it down to kind of a smaller number like this, ooh, there's a big old plane in the background here.
Run.
Let's add those transition keyframes here. Whoops. Okay, so we'll start at about 0-ish, and then we go to 4 seconds in and dial the completion back to 0. And now, like, look at this.
Look at that.
Enough. So
that looks pretty cool.
So here's a question. So have you done Generative Fill yet, or are you going to do it now?
So I haven't done Generative Fill yet, and I am going to do it soon. One thing that I found out is that if you really increase the number of columns and then go to the card scale and turn it up, you can end up with these kind of cool,
nice. Yeah, that looks like chunks
things.
Yeah,
which is kind of nice. And they do still rotate into place, and you could widen the transition thing like this. And let me see what I kind of want it to actually be taller and skinnier than I do.
Oh, really?
That way. So flip direction, flip order, top to bottom.
Now isn't
randomness.
Fill,
turn
isn't
that
Fill
up.
just going to generate on top of all this?
Well, Fill is basically going to generate on top of this. But the reason why this part is important is because I'm going to set Fill up to generate the stuff that's around this building. So if I go back to this situation, let me get rid of that transition. You can see what I have. I have nothing for Fill to generate. So now I need to do the secondary part of this, which is, man, I'm so sorry this is taking so long to explain, but we need a hole for Fill to fill in. So what we're going to do for that is I took a second copy of this building cutout layer because it already has a transition on it. And on it, let's hide the top copy. And now we're going to make it matte for the bottom layer, but an inverted alpha matte. So if you see what I mean, it's empty behind, and then this thing is on top. But we want it to be leading this by just a little bit. So one thing you could do is you could literally just take your layer and slide it up. In this case, it'll create a hole in your footage that just precedes the transition. So now you have this kind of weird little body right here that's going to be generated. And what I did on top of that is I went over and did a matte choker.
Reverse choked it.
Reverse choked. and then turn that up, and now here's what I've got. And this is the gravy. This is the cool part. So now I have this interactive clear region that is at the top of this that's going to be filled in by generative fill. And I see these lines along the side of the building, and I don't love them. So there are a couple of different things I could do. I think what I honestly did was I just made a duplicate of the original background or something like that with no matte, and then cut it out with the original building. What did I do? I did something to that effect. You could do this too. Why work any harder than you have to? So now it'll keep this bottom part of the footage roughly, and it'll only be generating this invisible part up here. And once you get up to here, you don't need to be generating stuff anymore. So I could actually maybe add a keyframe to my the position of my matte that I offset earlier, and have that kind of sync back up over time to around here. So you'll see that there's now some headroom as it's getting built, but then the headroom disappears as we get to the top and catch up with the building. So we're just going to do one example frame from this. So let's say this one, all right? I'm going to use my sheet of... if you copy to clipboard, does it get the transparency? I don't remember.
I don't know. You don't want us to do create reference frame? That's what I like to do.
Oh, the thing that we just introduced to people?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, look at that. There's a button right here, and if I say that, it'll open it right in Photoshop. Dang it, Seth. That's why I keep you around.
I know.
That and the years-long friendship.
Nope. Shh. Don't tell them the other reason.
Clear guides. All right.
All right.
So
hang on, real quick. I don't want to leave the chat out of things. Justin Liddick says Generative Fill is the new remove tool, which is a reference to my saying generative fill too quickly. Imani is in the chat. Hey, girl. And Adrian Jensen says, "I love the thing that they really like the quote. That the thing is, you can still do that for money. Yeah, there are some shots where that would totally work. Card wipe is a really cool and really powerful tool, especially if you drive the transition with gradients, because you can use pre-comps or other layers in After Effects to drive how the wipe works. So instead of just being linear,
Hashi,
you can completely control it from black to white.
I mean,
Hashi, don't do it. Hashi, don't show it off.
I'm not going
so much
to
do today.
But I'm gonna mention this was the hole that I ended up making in my version to create the construction effect.
Nice.
So
did you
can
use
sort of
Illumat
see
to get the lines.
So that's all I did was I took I got exactly to this the same stage that we were at. Where's our example? Okay, so yeah, here's our example. I did less of a card dance situation here, or card wipe. Let's see. I do kind of want to show how you could make it a little bit more similar. Let's turn the transition width down so it's more like that. And then in here, I took the original footage, which is right here, single building footage. I can put it right on top of everything. Or actually, no, I can put it right under everything. But then I can go extract. And then you can see where most of your visual data is up here in the extract curve. And so if I cut out the brightest parts, because I don't want the brightest parts, and I'm going to cut out some of the darkest points, somewhere in the middle, I'm left with just the mids. And honestly, like it's probably more near this peak would be good to kind of find. So somewhere in here, it was a great peak that gave me this bit of building. So and again, you may be wondering why we're bothering with all the card dance and stuff. And honestly, like if we didn't have the subtract matte on, this would be a totally worthwhile effect if you're in a pinch like that. Like that's fine. But the cool thing about the frames like this is if you come over to Generative Fill, here's an important step. Open your Actions panel before you start playing around with it. We'll create a new set for today. And I'll say, create a new action. And we'll call this building. filler, and then I'll say record, because I would love to be able to do this over and over again. So I can take this layer and just start doing what I would need to do. So I would select the pixels that are there by right-clicking there and saying select pixels, and then I would invert the selection just like that, and you can see it's recording the steps right here. And then I would select, modify, maybe expand that by like 2 pixels. I don't need much. I just want it to kind of go a little bit outside that little feathering that it did. And now I will say Generative Fill, which will also be recorded with whatever prompt we type in here. So let's type something like
nice.
skyscraper under construction with scaffolding and cranes.
Oh, that's so clever, Hosh.
And you click generate.
Seth, did you just make that like just now?
It's literally all I've been doing. I wasn't paying attention to the first part of the show.
See, this is what you come to VFX and Chill for. These are bespoke graphics that weren't going to exist.
Speaking of bespoke graphics that weren't going to exist, look at that.
Look at that. It's generated.
Now, Hashi, you could argue you did not need the card wipe.
Yeah, I didn't need the card wipe. Look at these results. They completely understand the scale. They match the lighting. And what I love about this is, I'll press stop now. So you can see my action over here was basically, set the selection, invert, expand a bit, and then generate fill. And I didn't need any of the rest of this stuff. That's all I needed. And then I could keep recording and say, let's save this as a Photoshop file, because you can import a Photoshop sequence to After Effects. And the benefit of doing it this way is that you save it to a new folder. And once you've done that, you can open any of the frames and look at the 3 options in case one is way better, or in case you get one that's a really bad result. I got a few the original time I did this where it would just look like a blue tarp filled in this whole section and was sort of on top of it. And like it looked, construction-y, but the scale was very wrong. But then I would just go into the Photoshop file and be able to click on the alternatives right there, save whichever one I liked, and that's the one that would appear in an image sequence later. So in case you've never done a batch processing of things, I'll show you how you do it. It's so easy. So we recorded these steps, which is great, right? And then, I forgot to record the save step. So you record a save as, you find a folder that you want to do this thing in. You don't modify the name. You just leave the name and say save. Maximize compatibility, because that all gets noted here where it says save, and then you can close it. And that'll be the last step of your action. So now we've created an action. If we went to, say, grab another frame from this, let's see, let's grab this frame or something. We'll, I'm sorry, there's the button right here. Jeez. Create reference frame. Now I don't have to do anything except for find my building filler and say play. The first few steps happen instantaneously. This third step takes, 15 to 20 seconds or something like that. Oh, and then it closes at the end, so we don't get to see the results. Let's see. It would have saved it right here, which is cool. So it saved it right here. Let's open it up and look at the 3 results it gave us. It gave us this, that, and that. And they're all, like, what's neat about them is that knowing they're only going to play for a frame, I like this one. It looks like some weird vehicle that's sort of parked there, and these other, levels are still kind of open and just the concrete is in them, which is kind of cool for you architects out there. But playing one frame at a time, you can end up with a really cool result like this. here's the first result that I got two results. This was the first result after running one version of the action with a set of keywords. And you can see, like, as I go through it, every single one of the frames
so cool.
has its own merits. Like, this is weird.
Wow, it's just also an incredibly expensive construction job. Not only just the way they're doing it, but there is new gear there every week, like a brand new infrastructure of gear.
No reuse of gear. Sometimes they even like finish it
and then take it down.
You're like, no. We need more.
Got to go higher.
This is how I would build a building. And it would just slowly build and tip as it builds. Like,
But look at this perspective shift. We're now, even with the building here, we have some perspective on these little bits of the balcony that are unconstructed. And as we
correct,
get further,
J.C. Tecklenburg, we ran the batch action on the image sequence, not creating a reference frame for each frame. Sorry, I just saw that question.
Yes, because in Photoshop you can say, hey, run a batch action, apply this action on this entire folder of images, and it will do all of it for you automatically.
Yeah, let's look at what that looks like. So Generative Fill, actually I should be in Photoshop. That'll be easier. So I'll say no, I don't need to save that. But now that we've created this building filler, what's kind of neat about it is that it could be used for multiple things. Because this is a similar action that you might need every time. The only thing that's different is that you do need to uniquely record your prompt. It turns out that if you do this thing, which used to mean enable options, it doesn't bring up the prompt option. So unfortunately, if you need something different, all you do is open a dummy document and press record, and to do generative fill and add a different prompt. But once that's all there, this is saved as building filler, for example, and I can say File, Automate, Batch. And in here, it'll say, which action do you want to run? I want to run the building filler action right there. What do you want to run it on? I want to run it on a folder worth of files. So I'm going to choose a folder. And specifically in this case, I would have been working with my weird folder of stuff. And I would
Speaking of which, Justin Leduc in the chat is asking, why does Hashi have a folder named Pics of Seth wiggling out of the backseat of a car that only has 2 front doors?
Reasons.
Because I was told to keep my files organized, and I hate every time I've got to like search through and it's called like DSC 0079 for. I needed a folder that implied what was in it.
Love it.
But in general, don't name your folders, people. You'll just get attached. And thank you.
That logic is terrible.
So good, so good. So so back to the way this works. You select a folder. In this case, this one. Let me open up this folder so you can see what this one looks like. All right, so this particular folder is a folder with a hole cut out from everything. Oh, and that's actually the wrong one. I want the single building with hole.
God, such weird
folder.
stuff in that.
So you select the whole. It is weird. I'm going to use some interesting. There are going to be holes and holes filled in this next section here by generative fill in a strictly very graphic sense. So here we go. So choose the folder of all those images. You can either choose to have it stop for errors if you're going to be hanging out at your computer, or you can say log all of the errors to a file. So like I have them all saving to this bad generative whatever.txt file, which I like seeing. And then over here, I checked the box for override the action save as. That way, there's a save as feature in this action right here. But if I choose a folder to put all of the things in, it'll kind of overwrite wherever I saved stuff in this action and put them wherever I say here. And then you can do other things like it can be named by the document name and the extension, so the exact same file name. Or you could do something like add a field and say underscore generative fill, like GF or something like that, if you like. So all wonderful things that you can do. And then once you press OK, it will just start opening each of those files like this and running that exact action on them. And this is the point where you walk away from this. The sound of generative fill. It's
I'm sorry.
I don't know why Photoshop didn't put that in there automatically.
What if they did? Adobe would have so many complaints.
And there's the only checkbox for it is turn up volume of.
It's for accessibility purposes for the more hard of hearing users that you can just turn it louder.
But the cool thing you can see here happening is that it's through 5 frames already, and it's moving on to the 6th, and etc. I'm going to stop this action right here, but you can see that this is the part that you might want to walk away for because it'll take half an hour or an hour. But it looked like 4 or 5 frames a minute for something that will look better than I'd be able to generate on my own. In fact, let's see where those did get generated. Where were they generating to? I think they were generating to the Content Aware Fill folder. So, got to remember what I called that for the show today. Was it in the Fills body folder? No. Was it in the Fill folder? I'll have to talk about all of this stuff later. But Seth, you mentioned something that might be easier than doing this whole create an action frame by frame tedious bit of work.
I did.
Had a great idea that was just, hey, we paste stuff to stuff all the time. Why don't we use it for that?
Absolutely. So, first off, let me hang on real quick. Let me open up Art Grid and find a shot of someone's face. So let's show some of the obvious things you could use this for, right? For let's say we want to give someone a big old face tattoo. Okay, who's a good candidate for a face tattoo? This person?
Let's see. How about that plain Jane right there? I like that.
All right, then we're gonna
don't call her plain Jane. She's gorgeous Jane.
She's gorgeous Jane.
She is. All right, we're gonna use gorgeous Jane. Go Jay, as they say. Is that a term? Okay. Sometimes you say things and they sound like you shouldn't say them.
Like calling someone plain on a live stream.
Live. I'm sorry. We're about to give them a big old face tattoo.
You're not plain.
Let's see.
To be fair, I was looking at your thumbnail inside of my Skype window, inside of a thumbnail.
Things look very plain then. You're right.
They look very plain.
So here's what I'm going to do. We'll start with generating the face tattoo. I'm going to send this over to Photoshop. I'm going to say create reference frame. It'll open up the beta.
Best splash screen ever.
Yeah, you know what? I'm happy with it.
That is not the best. The best splash screen ever was for the AE beta that was codenamed Darth Tater. And it had it had potatoes with lightsabers.
Nice.
It was amazing.
Adobe code names.
All right, so let's give gorgeous Jane a big old face tattoo right on the cheek, right? Maybe even dip.
Anyone have a suggestion for what the tattoo should be like? Put them in the put those suggestions in the comments.
I like the idea of just saying tattoo, and we'll just see.
Sure.
Where,
let's just say tattoo first off, and
the 2 T's and 2 O's and
and generate. All right, so we have 3 options here. Well, let's tattoo of a.
And I'll mention that all of those examples would work.
Yeah.
And they're blended perfectly into this. They're not like a tattoo that you have that you multiplied over it. Like they're baked into that.
Totally.
They were diffused into that image.
Yeah.
Stable. Tattoo of?
Justin Leduc wants it to be Thug Life, but state diffusions don't do great with text. JC Tecklenburg wants it to be Nerd Tribal Tattoo. And Chris Frano says that they wish it were a tattoo of us three, but we're not in the data set.
How about a dinosaur tattoo?
Tattoo.
That is what Adrian Jensen and Nick Fitzgerald have both suggested.
Of a dinosaur.
I'm going with the more broad term dinosaur, just for the sake of the AI. It's still learning.
Tattoo of a dinosaur surfing. I'm going to do a dinosaur surfing.
And for those of you who are on the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel or the Maxon YouTube channel are like,
oh,
where are all these comments coming from? The Red Giant YouTube channel is where the majority of folks are hanging out and chatting. It's youtube.com/Red Giant. There's nearly 100 folks there. So if you're
I'll just say dinosaur.
Come over to this giant chat, this red giant chat.
Think hard about the dinosaur. Oh wow,
that one did not work well.
No,
all right. So what I think is happening here, Seth, go to the shape of the selection you have, and make it a little bit more dinosaur-like.
Mm-hmm. Oh, come on!
Instead of maximizing the canvas space, make it roughly the shape of the thing that you're talking about. Because it turns out, when it's trying to guess what will go in a shape, the more information it gets from you in terms of the shape, the better it can guess things that might fit there.
Well, I was gonna do. Hang on.
Like some teeth, like cut out a jaw.
Yeah.
A dinosaur jaw, that is. See, that's fun.
Nice.
See, what I like about this is that all of these stages are very different than the other stable diffusion to video situations we've seen before, where we're like, you're really directing what frame you want to design this from. You're creating the diffusion shape.
Shout louder. Can't hear you.
Nicely.
Oh, there we go.
Perfect.
So much for drawing a jaw. I did nothing. But all right.
I kind of like that. That one's kind of cool.
I'm going to do,
It might need a little bit of comping.
You know what I've
now.
noticed, Hosh? Whenever we type dinosaur into this thing, it really has a hard time. So let's try tattoo of a boat.
It's hard to talk over this thing. It's very loud.
Is it?
Filling the space.
See,
I'm going to try one more
I'm
thing.
surprised it didn't give us tattoos of an island or something.
I'm going to do like this, and I'm going to say face tattoo.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, yeah. Karen Loom in the chat says, Amani Larissa is amazing. Yes, she is.
Yes, she is.
Honey is amazing. Her latest piece is phenomenal.
So good.
I'm inside my head too much or something like that.
I love that.
So good. Wait,
all right. I will not press the drop after this one. Work, Phil, work. I draw that huge mask, and it's like, you want it here.
Boop. Perfect.
What? That's the.
And for the
part of me is like, let's just go with this boat.
We had Amani on the show, and the episode is linked in the chat if you want to see that after this one is over.
Excellent.
All right, I'm now doing elaborate face tattoo.
Amani just like, yeah.
Now, Jessica in the chat is suggesting to type in Mike Tyson tattoo into Generative Fill. And here's another thing that makes Generative Fill in Photoshop different from Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, etc. It did not just scrape the web stealing art from all over the internet. Adobe's thing is only trained on their stock library. So the stuff that people gave to Adobe and said, here, use this footage for whatever in the Adobe stock library, that's the only thing that their model is trained on, which means there's not going to be any brand images or public personalities in there. It's only going to be generic stock photographs of people who have allowed their likeness to be in stock photography. So you can't type in, Brad Pitt doing blah, 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 because Brad Pitt is not in the Adobe stock library.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I believe that you were even, I'm not positive on this, but I thought that they sent out like, by the way, this is a thing that your stuff will be used for unless you opt out or something like that. Like, so you had the opportunity to say, don't include my stuff.
So Adobe's been working very hard to be ethical and inclusive in it. One thing I really like is on the website, on the Adobe Firefly beta on the site, where you can generate from scratch, not inside Photoshop, but like just images from whatever. You type in something like doctor, and instead of all the other generative, things like Stable Diffusion and Midjourney, you get like a bunch of old white guys. Like you type doctor and you'll get females and people of other races. Like, it's not so like
yes
biased as a lot of the other ones are.
In fact,
I thought that was really great too.
Yeah, the one we talked about last week, the thing with the ballet dancers right at the top.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Where we cycle through right here. Maybe not that one. I guess you don't have it in here.
Let me see if I can load it up.
You did you just said ballet dancer, and it showed you just from the diversity of frame to frame to frame that its diversity, whatever you want to call it, works really, really well. I decided to do just this face tattoo. Now I brought it back into. I literally just refreshed it in After Effects and it was there. Now it's a reference frame, so it lasts one frame. Right now, how do we stick it to her face? Well, for now, I'm going to turn off the reference frame and I'm going to apply my new favorite tool, Chris Vranos' Lockdown, which
I'm curious to try something. Is this in our folder? The stock and the
no, it is not. It's in my downloads folder, but I can try to get there.
I don't want to slow your momentum. Just keep.
But it's our grid account. It's the most recently purchased one. So there's a couple ways I can do this. I can track the face by holding down Command on the Mac and just lassoing the whole face. And while that's one way to do it, and it creates a whole whole mesh of points. So let me just see if this works. I know that Vranos says not to do it this way because often you don't need this many points to get the track you want. But let me just let me try it real quick. So I'll hit track all, and it's gonna roll through and just track as her face moves. I really don't need this much. I didn't need the whole face. I don't know why I did that. Well, I did it because there actually is some...
Well, it did have a few landmarks in there, which are pretty good.
And I realized I probably want some more points down here on the edge of the face too. That's okay. Let me just get this track done to this shot. I could have made this shot smaller, but
hey, go big or go home.
I don't want to go home. I'm already home.
Yeah, didn't think about that, did you?
I never do. So
Plato or whoever made up that quote.
Yeah, seriously.
Go big or go home.
Pre-COVID. Work from home lifestyles now. We're out of things to talk about. Oh, you know what I realized we could have done?
Track it.
Thank you, Robert Pattinson. Robert Patrick. I know the joke. And so now we've got the shot
to go
tracked.
back to the tape for that one. I don't believe that I said that.
Look at that. Look at these points. Look at these points. I love watching lockdowns like
In
Mesh.
fact, this is good. Let's just export this.
This is so
Send
fun.
the client that.
I know, right?
This would be good for an FUI stuff, like FUI stuff.
Absolutely. I'm going to add a few more points down here on the edge of the face, and I believe they should track just fine if I select just those points. Bibbidi-bibbidi-bibbidi-bibbidi-bop. And hit track. They'll track much faster.
Chris Vranos says, I do say not to do it that way, but I do it that way fairly often. If a track becomes difficult, it's better to use fewer points because they're more adjustable. But for this, it might be okay. And Azim and Michelle says, LOL, that was dope.
You're dope.
That looks like it's going to work great.
Yeah, it'll work just fine. So...
Yeah, and
now,
obviously you can babysit these a little bit more and get, finer results.
I'm going to clear the mesh, and then I'm going to re-auto-triangulate because I added some points. And I think I should be good. So check this out. If I go into stabilize tracking right here and I hit play, this is fun to watch. This is that image, that mesh laid flat and stabilized. And that's what it's going to put into a pre-comp for us to put our tattoo into. These are really fun to watch, like on our Mission Impossible ones where I was trying to track Tom Cruise's face and he's punching a guy. And it would just be like this like crazy warped face, stuck out like this. All right, so I'll hit X, go back into After Effects, and I'll click Lockdown. I need a lockdown drop. And now I'll go into this pre-comp here where we see this checkerboard. I'll turn that checkerboard off and I'll copy my I'll pull my reference frame out of there and paste it into here. And I turn that on. Before I actually mask that, let's see what it looks like if I just leave it like that. I need to actually freeze it. I'm going to use my freeze shortcut, which freezes the one frame.
Could you quickly save that frame as a JPEG or something like that?
Yes, absolutely. Bibbidi bop. Oh, you know what? I just realized I could do that with the thing, can't I?
Yeah.
Boop, boop, boop. VFX
Bam,
Chill.
that is VFX console or effects console
boop.
by
Yes,
Video
FX
Copilot. Console. It's free, so go grab it so you have your stuff.
So let's see what this looks like.
Reach.
Before I mask the tattoo, let's just see how the whole image looks when it's... Oh, no.
Her eyes.
So obviously we don't need the whole image mesh tracked to her face. So I'm just going to mask the tattoo.
Andrew Krajewski from Microsoft Teams is asking, the chat is asking, can you do a full face conversion with Lockdown?
Oh, you read my mind.
Is that what you're about to do? Nice.
Yeah.
So I have basically, look at that. Look, the tattoo's on her face. Woo!
Success. Might need to do a little bit of a color shift towards the end, but geez.
Totally. But look at that. That's exciting and cool. So, okay. So that's one straightforward way to use Generative Fill to create some things. There's also some really dumb, fun ways. And this might actually have a really good practical application. So I've got this shot.
This might be the thing you take home, folks.
Yeah, here we're into actual useful areas.
So we've got a guy on a motorcycle. But my thing is, motorcycles are cool and all, but I think they can be cooler. So first... I'm going to set myself up for success I'm going to create, last time I did the generative fill first and then I did the tracking. I'm actually going to do the tracking first this time. And I'm going to use Kingpin Tracker this time, which is a part of our the visual effects suite product thing. What do we call it now, Michael? Because it's still VFX suite, right?
Yes, it's still the VFX suite.
Okay.
Michael, you're muted.
You can't just say, I want to buy VFX or I want to use VFX. So on the website, it just says VFX. I always just call it VFX Suite.
Cool.
But yes, Kingpin Tracker is part of VFX Suite and is very cool for very many number of things. And if you want to learn more about it, the link for it is in the chat.
Definitely. Now, Kingpin Tracker is for planar tracking in After Effects. And then what's a thing to remember about it is that you apply it to the layer that you're going to be sticking to something. You apply it to the top layer, not the bottom layer. So in this case, it'll make sense as we do it, but I'm going to create a solid that's just going to be, let's make it the comp size, and sure, it can be VFX and Chill yellow. And then I'm going to turn off its visibility, and I'm going to apply Kingpin Tracker to that. And now I'm going to... see if I remember correctly. Yes, I'm going to drag these corner points down here to parts of this motorcycle that I feel like will probably be decently trackable, right? And they don't have to make a perfect rectangle. They don't have to be perfect by any means. And I'll show you why in a second, because we're going to...
It's basically just 4 tracking points, in one.
Exactly. And it creates a plane from that. So then down here, layer to track, I'm going to select the motorcycle plate there, and I'm going to track it.
Now, Kingpin Tracker works so
fast. And that's how fast Kingpin
You'll
Tracker.
notice that, it tracked the whole shot 4 points. So way faster than the point tracker, everyone.
And faster than other options. The great thing about it is, you've got Mocha AE for free with After Effects, but you have to jump out to a whole other interface. And Kingpin, it happens just right here inside After Effects.
Right here.
You don't have to be jumping back and forth. And
obviously, right as it hits the edge of the frame, it stops tracking the motorcycle. That's okay. I can just boopity boop. And
boom.
Now
That's
I've
perfect. And notice that it did track all the way until the majority of that was out of the screen.
Absolutely.
It tried. It did a good job interpolating for a moment there.
So now that I've done that, you see like the yellow solid is now tracked to the motorcycle, but that's not what I want. I'm going to want to, well, more on that in a second. Why don't we come back? And first I'm going to pre-comp this, but I'm going to say leave all attributes in motorcycle comp. I'm going to put that as the motorcycle. All right. So Kingpin still exists in this comp here. And I'm going to go ahead and do this now. I'm going to go to that first frame. No, let's save that magic for later. We're going to come back and show you the reason why I use Kingpin Tracker in a second. But for now, let's turn that off. I'm going to create a reference frame from the very first frame. And I'm going to select enough of this motorcycle, leaving the handlebars and his hands. And there's a couple of things. Like one, I'm wondering, like, could I replace it with, what if I say like a hovercraft?
Ooh, I like hovercrafts.
Couldn't help it.
I feel like we might want to work on the volume of that thing.
I don't know. I think it's working fine. Okay, so it's not a hovercraft. It's got wheels, but it's pretty funny. So like,
that go back one.
Wait, what are we?
That one's funniest.
That's hilarious.
All
it's
right.
Like
that one's pretty good too.
Wait, you could also just press generate again too.
Yeah, let's see. What else could it do? That one had his legs like he's pedaling it with his feet. There's a good one. That one's pretty funny to me.
It's like a Volkswagen Beetle budget as a sidecar.
It is.
What's lovely about these is that they match the lighting.
Uh-huh.
Every edge of it on this frame is seamless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have a really great VFX asset. Like, if you're like trying to track a jet or something into a shot, like the lighting might be off and that'll kind of hurt your comp a little bit.
This one makes me laugh. I'm going to do this one. So
do that one.
I'm going to bring this back in here. I'm just going to purge the cache so that it reloads itself. All right. So now I'm going to take this reference frame. I'm going to put it into the motorcycle comp here. And if I bring it back in here and I turn that on, that doesn't really do much for me, right? Well, first off, let me just freeze and make it now last the full comp and be a still. That doesn't really help me, right? But if I go to the first frame and I go into Kingpin and I go down to From Pins tab and I click Copy From Two Pins, what it's going to do is the two pins are these yellow pins and the from pins are these extra blue pins. And notice if I move these from pins, if I try to place them right where the yellow pins are, it will stretch that stretch that image back out to the full width of the comp.
Oh, this is clever.
And so if I click Copy From Two Pins, boop, look what it just did. This is that layer and it is now moving like that. So what I'll do is I will go back into the motorcycle and I'll just do a quick garbage mat just so we can see what this is going to look like.
Oh my gosh.
All right. So now.
Yes.
There we go.
Would it be easier to garbage mat around it in the pre-comp?
It might, but the trick, I mean.
Wait, actually, no. Go back to Photoshop.
Oh, that's where I was going to do. Instead of garbage matting, I was going to go in here.
There's a remove background button.
Yes, there is. So
you got to flatten that and then say remove background or whatever.
Rasterize layer.
Actually, no. Maybe you could do it from the layer itself.
I can.
What happens if you turn off the background? What does that layer by itself look like?
Well, it should be. I thought I rasterized it, but it's not.
Apply layer mask.
Let me see. So if I turn off the background and I'll click remove background.
There we go.
Boom. I don't know if it's enough. So I'm going to actually...
So be aware of tools like that because, honestly, they're amazing.
Yes. I'm going to
use it to do that ballerina one. I had in my batch action, I had it just select the ballerina. Boom.
You got to do select subject, and it worked. Incredible. Mm-hmm. So what I love about Photoshop, I often will do, like, if I'm painting out, if I'm doing paint outs and there's like tree brush or some foreground object that goes in front of the paint out, I'll bring it into Photoshop, and I'll actually do the selection, like the essentially roto of the plant in Photoshop, and I'll do this select and mask, which like has these really great edge refinement tools.
Ooh, look at that.
Clicking radius and smart radius, and it automatically like does really nice radius stuff. I need to radius stuff. See this? I can't believe I teach this stuff. So I think that might be good enough for me if I...
And if you too want Seth to teach you, go to Lipscomb University. Or just come for free and VFX and Chill.
Or just come here. Layer via copy. There's a little edge here. I'm going to erase. All right. So now, and maybe this little guy right there. Okay. Now, if I just save this, go back into After Effects. Now that's what exists in there. And now I'll just have to paint out the motorcycle.
Look at that.
And say we want to paint, let's see if we can paint out the motorcycle pretty easily. I think what I can actually do is using this, I'll open up this, wonder if I can just copy this mask, paste it on the yellow solid, see if that covers up the motorcycle well enough. Down a little more. I could put like a guide layer in there, but you know what? I am lazy right now.
Might as well be.
And
if you can work less and get a good result, why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you? All right, so what if I do that much? Let's see. Will I still have... Yeah, that'll work. So I want to make sure that it's...
One little tip while Seth is thinking for you folks, if you've got Kingpin Tracker and you wanted to use it on stuff and you're shooting, especially with cameras that have wider angle lenses, you probably also want to use another tool in VFX Suite called Lens Distortion Matcher. It gets rid of the lens distortion on your image so that you can then do better it makes AE's camera tracker work way better.
Absolutely.
And it makes Kingpin Tracker work really nicely too, because it turns all those curved lines that should be straight back to being straight. And then you can use it to reapply that lens distortion back onto your footage after the VFX are done. So you end up with a much more realistic, number one, a way more accurate track, but number two, a much more realistic visual effects shot, because the visual effects then bend with the lens, and it just adds that little extra bit of believability onto your shots. If you want to learn more about it, Lens Distortion Matcher is linked in the chat.
Why don't I get rid of the shadow too while I'm here? I'm going to bring the plate into here and set it to be a guide layer. And now I'm going to add another mask on this yellow and draw it around the shadow. And now this is what is coming back in from the motorcycle layer. And it's gotta leave a little more than it currently does.
Mm-hmm.
That's the 2 pins. So I'm just gonna drag that out. So now, it does that. So I'm going to, here in this main comp, just temporarily, I'm going to set the motorcycle layer, the blend mode, to silhouette alpha. So now it is punching out that area right there. I might get some really weird... Should I just paint him out too while I'm here and then mask it or something?
I would, just for the sake of cleanliness, you know. So
I'm gonna just do this, and this will all make sense in a second if people aren't following me. You know what I'm saying? So now
you're blocking out all of the subject and its effect on the environment via the shadow.
Exactly.
With some garbage mats.
All right. So now I'm gonna click.
Yes.
I'm gonna generate a fill layer.
Fill it up.
Oh, I gotta make that last longer. So,
Hey, haven't you worked with log images with Generative Fill? Axon Media is saying, is there a way to get around artifacts that GenFill adds to log images, or is the answer wait till it's out of beta? I mean,
it is because the diffusion models are probably all running in 8-bit for any of this stuff, unfortunately. So
and they're all trained
it's
on
a
the
bit of
Adobe
like
stock
a
images.
technology.
it still works
bottleneck
nicely
right now.
for not putting in a prompt. If you're doing paint out or cleanup work, it works just fine. Otherwise, I would recommend bringing it back in, and with SuperComp, you can if you don't have any elements of your plate left in the generated image, you can send it through SuperComp's color workflow and have it match the original. So this isn't perfect, but that's good enough, right? Oh, it's still working. Michael, I think you probably had more answer to that. Sorry.
Oh,
I
was just gonna say, or convert it. You use your LUT to convert it to Rec 709, do Generative Fill, and happy with that. Hope that result works when you go back to comp. John Corbett says Generative Fill is wimpy when it comes to imagery it will let you generate. I wanted it to show brains through a hole in a man's head. I was denied because it doesn't like brains. You do have to try to trick the prompt sometimes. Like, you can't get blood, but you can get like red wine spilled on something, or you can get jelly.
And what helps too is I've found if you say an actor yelling at someone.
Oh, nice.
It's more forgiving than if it sees an angry face. It assumes maybe there's a fight or something weird going on. But speaking of angry faces, Seth, I think without any warning, you should just quickly cut to my screen for just a second, because there's something I want to demonstrate.
Andrew, if you're watching, you're going to like this.
And one of the crazy things about this, everybody, is fun little face track and everything like that. But this was done all within the After Effects and Photoshop pipeline. Like, that's it.
That's nuts.
So what I did was I found this frame of Our Lady right here, and I said, create reference frame, which popped it over to Photoshop. I did a little selection like this with a little like magic brush thing, and did a generative fill on the face, which gave me these 3 options, and they're all just terrifying. What did I say? I said monster makeup.
Oh, the teeth on that one.
This one is painful.
Yeah.
Whatever happened. Ooh. So I was a little bit split. I kind of like just the crazy evilness of these. In my selection, I left the eyes because I wanted them to line up, which is kind of cool. And now, once I have this simple reference frame, I can save it, and it comes right back into After Effects. And so now it's there, but it's just one frame. So you have the whole thing, and then all of a sudden, blip, for just a second, there's that, right?
Which would be fun just to freak people out.
It would be. That's a good, like, wait, what happened situation. Because that's, I apologize to the folks at home. This is quite a face. But check this out. So I want this to track to the rest of the shot. So how can we do that? Well, one of our friends from earlier, Content Aware Phil, was feeling left out. And so here's what we did. We hide this reference frame for a moment, and we open up a copy of the face here and open up our Roto Brush interface and roto the face. So now I roto the face out, which means that I have this hole. Okay? So it's there's no face the whole way through except for one frame all of a sudden right here once I turn my reference frame back on. So now we have, so now we have a hole, and then boom, scary face for just a second, And in fact, I should turn on my the background too. So this is a full frame for this one section, and then it moves on. Okay, we all following?
Mm-hmm.
And now, all we have to do is go over to our content-aware fill, turn the alpha expansion way down to like 2, and then for the fill method, instead of object, we're going to say surface. And that's it. And now you say generate fill layer, and it's going to fill in all of the frames where there was no face. But to figure out what was happening, it's going to look at any information it can find, which includes the original footage that is being punched out. It has no alpha, but it does have a bunch of motion vectors in it. And all of this, it analyzes relatively quickly, and then it's going to start rendering. Let's see, we're rendering 2 of 3, 4, 5. This is pretty quick.
Hashi, is this the same technique you used in an Indiana Jones themed template tutorial?
So if you missed this, check out this, and I think in the chat right now is Adrian Jensen, who I think, Adrian, did you discover this technique? Because I thought I learned it from you. If so,
anyway, for those who are interested, you can melt faces with a very free face melting template and a lovely tutorial. The link for that is in the chat.
So now that content-aware fill is done, remember we only had this one frame before, and we'll press play. Now suddenly we have this makeup beautifully tracked onto the footage. You can see that one of the weird things happening is that since we used this reference frame where there wasn't any of the like bun in the back showing, those pixels get all stretched out kind of weird here, but it's no problem for this shot because if you go to the fill layer itself, all I need to do is go and put a really simple feathered mask around that. And in fact, we can put that fill right above the original footage if we want and turn the original footage back on throughout. And now, while not perfect, without using lockdown or any facial tracking, you're just using the tools in After Effects to do this crazy move. And I think that it's pretty cool. You'd obviously need a little mask keyframe there, but play with this technique in general. It's a really fun way to get some bizarro effects that are similar to lockdown, but also halfway into the data moshing category. Because you see we're getting some weird stuff like this, but hopefully you're more distracted by the frickin' monster face than...
I mean, roto and some tighter masking would get you there way faster than trying to like 3D animate a face moving around.
Oh, yeah. I mean, by the time we've done all the tracking and everything like that, you could just have this, and then you could, flicker cut to it or something like that. Ooh, we could even do, what if we did like a glitch transition on it?
So there is flicker cut.
We have
one of the
that
transitions.
in Universe.
Yeah, I didn't realize how useful flicker cut was until I threw it on something. I was like, holy crap! Imagine you showed this edit to the director.
So check this out. So here's a Universe flicker cut. On the transition B side, I'm going to leave it at nothing, and then I'll turn this all the way to 100. End behavior is none. Wait, let's see. Is that what I want to do?
I used it in Premiere Pro, so I don't know. Yeah, there you go.
And
you have to have it
opacity, nothing. There we go. So transitioning to nothing with the opacity 0. When it's at 100, it'll be showing the filled-in face. By
the way, real quick, just want to show this is really funny with content-aware fill, just having this guy's top half.
Just kind of floating.
Flying through.
It's like he's behind the trees.
So I've got the scooter, and by the way, I can just go in on the scooter and I can just say shadow and use RG shadow, I believe, to add this shadow back in. Like that. Let's just say like that, right? And then it's a little wobbly, but it'll do for now. All right, back to you.
It's referring to both the craft and the and the comp. So here's some flicker cut for you. So you could do a little like scary thing for a moment. You can adjust the number of cycles that happen during the course of that. So if it's a higher number, it'll be a little bit faster. And if I turn down to like 2, then it's a little flicker that's a little bit faster. And this is a lot of fun if you have like A/B versions of your effect shots and are making a reel or doing things like that. It's because it's interesting and it's really adjustable, and you can play with it, time it to your music, and so you can get those cool like little between a bunch of things without having to get in there.
Well, yeah, and if you put it in your edit, and then you're like, crap, I want this flickering to be longer or shorter. You don't have to then deal with a bunch of keyframes in After Effects or a bunch of actual flip and cuts in Premiere Pro. You just adjust the length of the transition or some of the parameters of the transition. It's just a way faster way to get that kind of cool flashing from one shot to the next, or in this case, from an A to a B. Like it's way more useful than I really like. When I first saw it, I was like, but then I started using it, I was like, oh, handy.
So pretty fun. So there's a full makeup like transition thing using generative fill and using content-aware fill working together. See that? I like that.
And maybe if you did makeup tutorials, it'd be more popular on TikTok.
Oh yeah. So it was David at Production Crate team did a video on how to use this effect. I think I want to give it a shout out. Let me see what was it called. Oh, back to Tom Cruise again. Man, we're going to have to remember Tom Cruise at some point.
Yeah, chat. Don't forget to remind us towards the end of the show that we need to tell you about this Tom Cruise thing.
Meanwhile, I'm just making jet skis over here.
Yes.
Ooh, I like that one.
I like this one. It's not connected, but
yeah.
Let me try one more. Because I have an idea. Jet skis with wheels. There we go. That's the one we want. Let's hit save.
Well, could you not like do like futuristic? I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Well, just for now, because I'm going somewhere with this. So if I take this, I'm going to rasterize this layer, and then because it's a raster, I'm going to try select remove background. Let's see what works. Did it work? I mean, no.
Oh my gosh, yes, please.
Let's try this. Let's do boobity boobity boop.
What are you trying to do? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I need his legs too.
Oh yeah, because he's not standing like that on the motorcycle, huh? Which again, like, look at all this stuff you get for free from the generated frame. Seth, if you want to cut to me for just a second while you get that selection worked out. The Production Crate video is called Secret Trick in After Effects Tracking Textures for VFX. This is the one where I had gotten this result accidentally, and then when David came out and was like, hey, look, you could use this messed up content-aware fill thing purposely to do this. I was like, how are you doing that? And it's purely using content-aware fill like a motion vector projecting tool, which is really cool. So anyway, yeah, shout out to this tutorial for teaching that. I tried to explain it the best that I can in the Template of Doom video of ours as well, and hopefully I explained it all right today. Anyway.
I think you did.
Monster face.
So, wait. Why is that background still there?
Well, we're on Hashi's screen, so we can't tell.
I know. Something weird just happened. Hang on. Select and mask.
Ooh, and from Production Crate, Nate also made a script to do the content-aware fill thing faster. Look at that. Oh, and Plot Coalition is asking how well that would work with EBSynth, and in fact, like, that is specifically the process that's happening right here in these with content-aware fill like that. And I know I said I wasn't going to open it, but I think I'm going to open up my content-aware fill.
You are? All right.
Yeah, I'm going to do it. I know it might spoil a reveal. of sorts.
I kind of
But yeah,
spoiled
you
it
finish
already.
yours.
All right, so jet ski is just hanging out there over the. And if we want to make it look like it's hovering, by the way, we absolutely can. We can go in and do shadow and.
For those of you who are interested in more about using shadow from the VFX suite, that is also linked in the description or in the chat. Oh, and Adrian says it was Nate Lovell that made the script to make the content or thing faster. Hashi, have you worked with Nate Lovell before? Have you worked with Nate Lovell at all? Ever?
Nate Lovell. In fact, if you watched the new cheap tricks that came out this week, everybody, thank you. A lot of you did.
Link is in the chat.
Link is in the chat. There's a new cheap tricks this week, and it gives away a tool that you VFX and chillers may have already known about. Our 3D plane stamp tool that was built by Nate to work as a way to stamp the texture right from a camera track into your comp. And in fact, Seth, once you're done with that, I think one of the next things that I could mention is how well the stamper works with the Generative Fill tool.
Go for it. I'm going to try something while you're doing that, and we'll just check back in with me in a little bit.
All right. While we were mildly on this topic, just to be totally ridiculous,
we can't see the face. It's covered up by the VFX and Chill sticker.
Content aware
or
Generative Fill demands.
I'll take care of it.
Generate them.
Wait, wrong button. I'm sorry. Hang on. Sorry. There you go.
So this little sequence of this animated body is long. It's 335 frames, but what the original looks like is this right here. This is a default Mixamo character, and I brought him into Cinema 4D, did some custom animation, and rendered him on an alpha just right out of the display viewer. Like, this isn't even a render. This is just the display port, because all I need is the basic shape of this character. And then I used a crazy process to take a handful of cool poses. Like, I took this pose, maybe this pose, this one, this one, this one, this one, about 8 poses across here, and then did what, let's see, I think I can open up my actual file where I'd done it. This one I actually do have labeled. So I got
we need that Ben Marriott drop of always label your layers. Someone tell Ben Marriott we need to borrow him for a second.
All right, so check this out. So I made reference frames from all of these kind of key poses. And so it generated something strikingly different than the... let's see, I'm turning these all on and off at once. So this is the input. I tinted it. And then this is the output from Photoshop. I typed in something like robot with glowing blue lights. And I got this. It's very different, but it's got this anatomical shape. Like, it's like a robot, which is really cool. But I knew that if I did that to every single frame across 335 frames, both it would take very long, and it would probably be a little bit too chaotic. So all of these reference frames, however many there are, 12 of them across the 300 frames, are in here. And then right at the bottom, I had the original thing right here, the, talking, moving render out of Cinema 4D that looked like whatever that looked like, this. So that's under all of this, but it's turned off. And so now when I run it's actually doing something even more than that. It's down here at the bottom and punching out a temporary background layer that I put back here. So in all of these in between frames, there is basically a whole shape here of the animation. And then every so often in this hole is one of the things that I generated of the new robot. And all these robots turned out great. And when I fed this whole sequence, even with all these missing parts, to content-aware fill in surface mode. The result was what I just showed y'all. This.
Oh, so it's basically morphing each one of those shapes and crossfading for you.
Which is exactly what EBSynth does, by the way. And you can do this all just using the Adobe stuff. So this, character is meant to be, kind of weird. And you'll get to meet them soon. Anyway, that's that detour. I was also going to show off the plane stamp thing, but I want to make sure you get to what you were doing.
No. Show off plane stamp.
Hey, Hashi, does 3D plane stamp work in a 32-bit comp now?
No, it does not, because
mine does.
We're using the... And, I mean, some smarter folks may be able to help me with this.
Wait, why does it work for me? I've been using it.
That's a good question. It's working for Seth. Why isn't it working for you all? No, it's because we're using the export PNG function, which is something you can call from a script at any time, and it doesn't involve using the output modules. If we wanted to write a 32-bit TIFF or something like that instead with transparency, your computer would need to have the correct output module for a script to add it to the render queue. So the only way to do that is to embed an output module to be written to your After Effects output modules from the script and then render it back. And that gets into some weird things that people are probably less comfortable with it doing, like writing to your, I don't know what directories it writes to do that. But I believe that's the gist of why I don't have it in 32-bit, is that I was not smart enough to figure that part out. But if someone wants to, the code is not, the script is all not encoded, so you can see exactly what it's doing. You can see all the contributors to it. Nate Lovell built it. I added a few little bells and whistles to it, and Zach Levat came in and helped us internationalize it, making it region agnostic, as it were.
And from suggestions from some of our lovely chill users, there's also a high quality button, your checkbox. So if it takes a longer time to write the image, it won't the script won't just fail on you.
Well, that's what has been doing my 32-bit. Maybe it isn't. I don't know.
That's a good question. I mean, the other thing that could be happening for something like that is that you could have a color space or an interpolation on the footage that when it's rendered out and that PNG comes back in, it doesn't have that same color interpolation, so it's getting shown like bare, which might be dark or might be just look wrong in general. So I'm not positive what would be right. I love the things that I have on my computer. Just that's there's some trap code forum for you. Actually, this is trap code forum in particular. With
that's all those people in the stands are from trap code forum particular.
Mm-hmm. They have little shadowlets, and on top of it, look at this. They watch the camera. They look as the camera goes by.
That's really cool.
But let me open up my my more default.
I mean, that feels a little bit like it's worth a quick little tutorial, Hash.
Oh yeah,
I think so.
You know what? If you all suggest little tutorials that you want to see, do that, and then maybe I'll make some.
And then maybe.
Let's see, tutorial record. Where did I save this other thing? Okay, here's an example. All right, so if you don't know what this 3D plane stamp tool is, it's right here on my screen. It's even docked right here. And the whole idea is that whenever you do a camera track, you make these little reference frames, like you say, I want a solid here or there or wherever. But they're just solids, and I feel like it would be really helpful if you could composite with them, if they had the information from the footage. So what this does is whatever solid you have selected, let's find an ideal frame here where we can see more of this wall. You just take the solid and sort of squish it to kind of fit this wall section here. And then you press 3D plane stamp while it's selected. Boom. And it will think for a second. And what it did was it quickly exported an unstretched version of the footage or anything below it like this onto a 3D card. So now this is a true 3D card. It's not the footage anymore. It's a 3D card that will pretty much line up right with the original footage. And the crazy thing about something like this is now I could grab this layer and let's go quickly open with, if I say edit original, will that open in Photoshop for me? No. Darn.
It just fires up whatever the computer's.
Oh, it's a PNG, not a PSD. So let me just reveal this in Explorer real quick. So it's saved to right here, right next to my project file. And then I could go over to Photoshop. Oh, geez. Okay, I'm gonna close you. Sorry. Close. No, thank you. No, thank you. Let's bring this in here. So now you've got this thing. And I could say right here, I would say generative fill. And what should we say? Let's do a wanted poster.
I'm very curious what it's going to do for that.
No
Kayla
idea what
Patel
to do.
says, how do I know this exists? It just came out this week.
It just came out this week, free right now. You can download it.
The link is in the chat, or just go to Maxon's
Yes.
news section. Wow.
Oh,
It got close.
love all these.
Oh, that one.
Seth.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the weird things that's going to happen is that
It's gonna get stretched
the
funky.
output of this PNG is the same as the original footage, so HD, and this is very stretched. So what is going to happen is I know that this is going to be all squished when I send it back, but I might as well flatten it, save it, I'll just save over it, and then come back into After Effects. And now look, it's there. And not only is it there, it's just it's tracked into the shot. And if I wanted something even more interactive, instead of doing it that way, I think this is all probably still undoable. Let's just go undo this. Let's save it with nothing done to it. While it's here and a solid, you could always say pre-compose, leaving all the attributes here. And now, if you go into this pre-comp, wherever it ended up, oh, it's probably in this fills section. No, where is it? Oh, it has a weird name. So you could go into here and you could say like wanted Caleb for awesomeness. And then I don't know what's a Western-y font. I feel like I always see one that's really annoying.
That one.
Oh,
yeah.
jeez. No, that's
I mean,
too,
Rockwell, if you want one that's not cheesy.
yeah.
Don't ask Seth, though. He'll have opinions.
Yeah, I'm not going to help you here.
Where's the little thing? I can't see the thing. I just want me a boring
Rockwell.
Western font. Here we go. Here's a perfect Western font. So let's. This is all unhelpful to have done so much here.
Well, I'll tell you what. Speaking of unhelpful, here's where I've gotten
Nice.
with my shot. I
Wait,
feel like
what?
I can even swap out the water a little bit if I
Wait a
want.
second.
Hey, go. Hang on a second.
That
See.
wasn't what that shot was.
Let's generate some new water.
I am nearly positive. Did you just generate a lake in place of a desert?
You know what I did? I didn't. I'll tell you who did. Adobe did. Generative
Adobe
Fill.
did it. Adobe did it.
Adobe did it. So I've got some different water here, like that I can use. I can. I think I like the one I had.
Yeah. That one. Ooh. Well, see, look, here's the thing. I love that you can have it make water, and it will give you the right reflections. Like it's
Pretty nuts.
That is ridiculous.
See, look, it's reflecting the flippin'. That one's awful. I hate that one.
That one is awful. I do hate it.
And you know what? Like, I know that we don't have a reflection for the character the way this came in, but
you can make one.
Very good news for you if you need to add a reflection to something that you don't have a reflection for.
Wait, which one was I using? I think it was this one. I'll save that. Go back in, refresh everything. Maybe scoot this horizon line up a tad.
For those who didn't get the reflection joke a minute ago.
No, I did. Let's see. Let's go into motorcycle. Let's give it some reflection. Why don't we?
Why don't we? VFX reflection. The link is in the chat.
And what I could do is I could bring.
I was gonna say, can you use the water layer?
I can bring my water layer in here. Turn it off. On reflection,
this
I can
is
say
my favorite thing about reflection. Watch this, everyone.
Displacements. Use the water layer as the displacement, and let's do vertical. Boom! There we go.
Oh, look at that!
Look at that! That is a perfect reflection.
Doing something weird at the top that I don't recognize. I've never seen before.
That could be an artifact if there being other effects above that are messing with the.
No, nothing's happening.
Oh no, that's not on. Okay. Where's your checkbox for the bounding box? Clip to bounding box.
Oh, you know what? It's because the water layer.
Oh, it disappears suddenly.
Yeah, it's almost like.
Yeah. It becomes,
Yeah.
Okay, is there a way to use?
I mean, just linear wipe, or just mask the effect off with the compositing options.
Smart. Boom, and reflection, compositing options. Let's use mask 2. And
Hey, as we're coming to the end of the show, Sminkly in the chat is asking what the Tom Cruise thing was about. So we do need to go talk about that.
Look at that! It's so funny.
Look at this.
That works so good.
Holy cow! Add some blur to that.
Yeah, add some blur to the reflection.
Oh my gosh, that makes me so happy how stupid this looks.
I would say, like, looking over that screen quickly, Seth. Like, I know I'm a visual effects artist and all by trade, but seriously, I look at that quickly and I'm like, hey, it's a jet ski that's hovering
I forgot it's not
above the
supposed
water.
to be hovering. It's not supposed to be hovering anymore, is it? My bad.
No. I do love that you can just grab that whole T shape and move where it is.
Oh yeah. See that now?
Yeah.
See, look, what? Bam! Look at that.
Now look at this.
Oh my god!
Holy cow! Okay, turn up the blur more. Turn up the whatchamacallit, the reflection
Spider-Man,
blur.
turn up the blur.
Turn up the blur. There we go. Yes. Oh.
Too much.
There we go. Now we are into the more photoreal territory of what's happening.
That first on this show.
First. So look at this ridiculousness. You know what? It probably looked better before. I'm sorry. I had you Spider-Man turn up the blur.
Hey, everyone should always Spider-Man turn up the blur. Just once.
I just opened my prep file.
What? Let me see it.
I have no idea what's happening here.
What the heck? Oh man.
Okay, wait. Instead of comic book character, let's type I don't know, Toy Story character.
Oh wait, Tom Cruise.
Oh, I should type Tom Cruise.
Well, no, but what was
Hey.
it?
Look at that.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's not. It's definitely sourcing.
Now let's try Tom Cruise.
Did you talk through the Tom Cruise stuff?
I am actually getting to that. Tom Cruise. Hey.
Ooh. Perfect.
Not
Flawless.
bad. Way for me to just tease that this thing exists in After Effects right at the very end of our show without talking about what it is. This is the BSKL Diffuse plugin.
Well said.
Thank you. Check it out. It is a a stable diffusion model linked to your After Effects thing. Whoops. And it references whatever you type in this thing to create a frame. So I could say, I don't know, alien dude. Okay, that's less alienish than I would have wished. But anyway, back to our Tom Cruise thing. Oh, I lost my little bit.ly/Ethan loop thing, which I want you all to study and then go check out. Oh my gosh. Just trying to make it visible using some kind of anything. Dear
some
goodness,
kind of anything.
I'm stuck in the non-font section. It's fine. Arial rounded is where we're settling. If you all want to download a lovely, loopable Tom Cruise holding on to things, as made famous apparently by this Tom Cruise holding on to the SpaceX camera right here, which is at 2.5 million views, everybody.
Good Lord.
Thank you very much. They ask us to make content that travels on the show, and we do. So along with this, we are giving away
Content. Yes, content.
content. A loopable version of this. Already, some of our amazing artists have pieces pouring in. We have from Robert Hranitsky, we got Tom Cruise in hyperspace. That's beautiful. Beautiful job comping in that shadow. That's great. I love the work there. Simon here at Real Time Simon made a Snapchat lens called Tom Holding On. If you search for Tom Holding On Snapchat, you have this positionable and rotatable Tom Cruise, and you can record it on your phone right now. Here is from our very own Kevin Rupp, Mission Impossible Must Go Faster. Boom.
Oh, that was really good, Kevin.
Great stuff, Kevin. Kyle Hamrick went
Oh, I love Kyle.
all in with the infinite loop of Toms. And
so good.
additionally, the 4th of July Tom holding on to the Zuck, which I love so many things. Both that we've done this on the show and given away Zuck as a looping.
I love that so much. Wait, did you? I'm sorry I missed it. Did you show the Titanic one?
Oh, I'll get to the Titanic one. So look at this, 17,000 views on this. Kyle, you know your
Golly,
audience.
it's good. He's holding it's so good.
We have Interstellar. We have this one traveled really far. Look at this. What could this thing? The UAP by Stephen Greenstreet. This one has traveled a lot too. Look at this, 43,000 views.
Holy crap.
You could be a part of this madness by downloading the Bitly Ethan loop, adding
it is the link is in the chat, folks.
You. I love this one because it took me a second. It was like featuring Tom in my game is main menu.
That's really funny.
Where's the Titanic one? Because that one got me because it has a perfect reveal. Here we go. He's just close enough for them to help him. That's what makes me love it so much.
It helps young women.
If they weren't so into themselves, like he
Right.
could save him.
They could starts like slightly. It's like you track, but also it looks like he starts slipping a little bit right at the end. Like He's got a grip, and then like right here just starts to lose.
Oh yeah, he's slipping down. Hey, if you want to download the Zuckerberg thing, by the way, to do your own Zuckerberg or Tom Cruise thing, the link to the Zuckerberg episode is also in the chat.
Gosh, there are so many of these, and we're.
Oh, this one's funny, where he's hanging off the shoulders of all these people. And the next person.
Tom in a video game. Gosh, I barely have time for all these. Tom in Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Excellent.
It's this, and like, of course, the classy crowd came out. Thank you, Adam. This was actually the first submission, which is lovely. So anyway, get in on this action, and we need to make a Tom holding on supercut. Yeah, go use your VFX chops. Use some of the stuff we learned today.
I love it so much.
And we'll probably talk about it next week.
All right, Seth, do you feel like we talked about some ways you could use generative fill to do visual?
I do. To answer your question, I do. I feel... Oh, Hashi, you were like muted or something. I don't know why.
Well, we had even more examples that we didn't really get to. So please leave comments or questions about the things that you're the most curious about, so we can either come back to them on a later show or do a separate piece on them. But we would love to see what you guys come up with using, you guys and gals, with exciting content-aware fill/generative fill effects, because it's a weird new world where you can just generate something out of nothing, and all within the Adobe interface. Might feel really safe for anyone who's just getting into this for the first time.
Absolutely. Man, this was a fun show, guys. I love you.
This is a chaotic episode. Which is so for every day. Thank you, Colin.
All right, guys. I'm not here next week. Are you?
What?
Yeah.
I'm around next week.
Oh, Captain Kelsey is asking, how did you create the water shooting behind the jet ski? Was it particular?
Production crate.
Yes.
So you could do it with particular, right. But it's a production crate asset.
Production crate. Coming to the rescue so many times in the show. Anyway, everybody, let's wish Seth a lovely week off from the show. Please reach out to us on the social media if you have any suggestions or things that you would really like to see us cover on VFX and Chill, or any dangling unanswered questions, and we'll try to get to them in the next show. Michael, thank you for all of your knowledge.
No problem. Love hanging out.
It was lovely.
All right, guys. I'll see you later. Goodbye.